10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Attention all planets of the Solar Federation. Attention all planets of the Solar Federation. We have assumed control. We have assumed control. We have assumed control.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good golly, Miss Molly. Never let anyone tell you that Rush are not metal as frack. Welcome everybody to the show today, where indeed we are celebrating, well, let's call them intergalactic prophets, shall we, or wizards. So, fellow travelers of time, space, and power chords, we are indeed dialing the Clockwork Angels back to the mid-70s, where three of these Canadian, how can you believe they're Canadian, intergalactic prophets, armed with guitars, drums, and some pedals, rewrote the progressive rock rulebook. Yes, we're diving headfirst into Rush's golden age, the glorious rise of 2112, the regal brilliance of A Farewell to Kings, and Neil Peart proving he was actually sent to us from another planet. So grab your kimonos, polish up your double-neck guitars, and prepare to defy the priests of the temples of Syrinx. Let's board the train to Bangkok as we celebrate Rush 1976, 1977. Welcome, everybody, to the show. Welcome back, my friends. And my friends have joined us today. We have a couple of real headbangers. So welcome, Sumo. How are you, mate?
Oh, dude, I'm doing great. Getting to talk about a band that I haven't necessarily explored the deepest into. I know a lot of their radio hits. So when you told me that you're doing the stream, I went and listened to these two albums, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. So kind of happy to just have an excuse to get into this band and hearing some seasoned professionals really get into it.
So you're here having listened to those albums for the first time, when I would have expected you may well be in interstellar space by now. If it's your first time listening to those albums.
Dude, they were, especially 2112 or 2112. I really got almost like Tommy vibes from, especially like the overture.
Yes, there's a couple. Well, the Who, Rush were huge fans of the Who, so there are certain songs that would have fitted on Tommy. I think, but and some of the guitar sounds occasionally sound a bit like that, but that's because that's what they grew up loving.
Of course.
But anyway, we will talk about that for sure. But welcome also to my fellow Canadian, the man who has single-handedly revived vinyl himself, Mr. Christian Delorme. How are you, mate?
I am great. Thanks for being here. It's and it's always a good time to talk about Rush. I remember Rush. I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, so I remember Rush very well, and I was there. Unfortunately, I never went to see them, but I saw the progression of Rush, and they were always a great band. And now that I'm in my 50s, I appreciate them even more, and I'm actually glad that
you've matured. You've matured.
Passed away, and I'll never see the band again live. But
I remember thinking I was so clever when I first listened to 2112 as a teenager, thinking, "My God, how clever am I? Listen to me listening to this music. I'm so smart." Lord Thoth is now instantly banned from the channel. So you're out of here.
Yeah,
red card.
We're not even muting him. We're kicking him out.
Yeah, he's out for good. Yes. Well, welcome everybody in the chat. So I can see Vince over there taking care of business on Rumble. Thank you, mate. We are on X as well, and we are here on YouTube. Happy Memorial Day to all our American friends, and obviously we salute those brave men and women of the past who served. So nice to have a day. They should have every day, but nice that they've got this day. Yes. But we can see hosers like Lord Thoth here,
Oh, good God.
Hey, over here for donuts.
Don't listen to him, eh? He's a hoser.
But of course, the immortal Geddy Lee.
Did our lawyer call you?
Yeah. $10 is $10.
$10.
In the words of the immortal Geddy Lee, $10 is $10. So we're going to run a poll today. And that doesn't mean anything nefarious. So the poll is indeed a poll in the chat, not any other kind of poll. And it's about what is the best Rush fashion statement, much as we did for Dave Lee Roth when we talked about Van Halen. So there are 4 choices. I'd like you to vote for your choice of favorite Rush fashion statement. If you're over in Rumble, we can't do the poll there, but you can always put a number in there, and I will add it to the 3 a.m. ballot drop. So first choice is with original drummer John Rutsey is the Glam Slam. As we can see, Rush were marginally glamming it up with a little bit of glitter and some very, very short women's blouses. So that's choice number 1, the Glam Slam. Choice number 2 would be Satin and Lace.
Yes.
Or Kimono My House, as you could also title it. So choice number 2, Satin and Lace. Choice number 3 would be A Flock of Geese, as opposed to seagulls. This is my personal favorite, I have to say. And 4 is the more straightforward Trailer Park Boys look.
Yes.
Yes, of which Alex, of course, did play a part in. So there are your choices. We have Glam Slam, we have Satin and Lace, we have A Flock of Geese. Not at all true that Canadians are gay.
No.
And Trailer Park Boys. So there's your choices. You be the judge. The poll is in the chat now. Keep clicking that thing.
Now,
if you haven't clicked it. So
I vote we tar and feather Masgrave there. He's being blasphemy.
Is he blaspheming? You cannot
blaspheming, yes.
You cannot blaspheme against well, they did go all prog synthy. They went all synthy.
No. What are you talking about? Keep the cup in United States, the real hockey country.
Well, as a Stars fan, I sympathize with his point of view there. I just don't sympathize with him in other things. But
most of the great Canadian hockey players, apart from Ovechkin, are pretty much all Canadian. Yeah, you get a few American wannabes, but Canada's where it's at. Come on.
Come on,
Hold on,
Nick,
hold on,
Nick,
hold
Nick Lindstrom. Nick Lindstrom wasn't Canadian. He's a
When
great
was the
player.
last time a Canadian team won the cup?
1992.
Thank you.
93.
I thought it was 92.
Yeah, but when did Gary Bettman come in? Right. All right.
Anyway, hockey we could talk about any day.
Agreed.
That's a bourbon and boarding topic. Today we're here to celebrate Rush.
Rush, the great band.
Before we do that, I just should point out that for those who don't have this beer, this is from Henderson Brewing in Ontario.
Nice.
This is the Rush 2112 beer. Now, I'm not drinking this today. As you can see, I've already drunk it because I'm driving later. So this is great. And Christian is visiting me next week.
8 days. 8 days
And
from
he's
now.
going to be getting some of that.
Yes, sir. I can't wait.
No bar is complete without the Rush beer. I even got the proper box.
Nice.
So,
Look at that.
Look at that.
Does Henderson still sell that? Like, will they
Oh,
ship?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
They'll ship to me?
Oh, God, yeah. They shipped it to me and I was in BC at the time.
Okay.
So that's the Rush beer. Where were we? Well, you see, it's totally disorganized
Yeah, well,
today.
I think this is where you say hi to people in the chat. I think.
So I do. So first of all, I should say that that we're doing what we're going to do today is we're going to have a chat for a while on YouTube, maybe an hour or so, and then we'll go over to Rumble exclusively and play some clips, so we can actually play some music. Because just talking about music and not being able to play it is a bit weird, and that's YouTube for you. So.
Oh yes.
But yeah, hello chat. So indeed, we have lots of fine people in the chat and some others too. We have the wonderful Lord Thoth, the hoser, as we know, I'm sporting the T-shirt he won in the last member stream we did. So he won one of these. We're going to be doing another member stream sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Nice.
And giving away more stuff. Maybe even Christian will get something when he's here.
Oh, that'd be great. Well, I'm a high sticking member, and let me tell everybody in the chat or will be watching later. Brian took the time to send me a nice box, a members box. It had a lot of perks, a nice book. It had stickers. It had stuff that I decorate in my house, and one of Brian's guitar. It's a nice members gift, and Brian is very generous to his members. So thank you, sir. Indeed, I do know how to treat a member. That's true. That's what she said. So I did see a comment by, here we go, Soul Assassin. So welcome, Soul Assassin. 70s opens a can of Rush beer and Tom Sawyer plays. It's funny that it does happen. It's weird. It's a different song plays for each can. Davina is here. Good to see you. Vince Womack, and thank you, Vince, for taking care of stuff mod-wise over in the Rumble side. We have Massgrave. We have other people who I'll probably forget and they'll never forgive me. And also what I was going to do something. What was it? No, I'll figure it out later. Here it was. Oh, I can't do it in there. I got to do something else. So later on, I might give some memberships away. So, right. So Rush, it is. So let's talk about this. We really want to focus in on 76, 77, but we'll just do the lead up to that because we can't just start there. So we have the 19 studio and 11 live albums, over 40 million records sold worldwide. 24 gold records, 14 platinum records, including 3 multi-platinum. Not bad for a little Canadian bandy. Yeah, exactly.
They rank 5th for most consecutive gold or platinum albums by a rock band, only behind the Beatles, the Stones, Kiss, and Aerosmith.
That's great company.
Yeah. Played over 2,400 gigs across more than 30 countries. Usually bands focus on one country at a time. They play all gigs over 30 countries. But each gig is over 30 countries, which is really hard to do. That's a very subtle joke, but never mind. As you can see, lots of albums, fabulous band, and so much we could talk about. With Rush, you could talk about them all day and never cover everything. Albums, equipment, stage performances, etc. It's just so much stuff. That's why I wanted to focus in on a certain era. Look at those handsome chaps.
Yep. Nice instruments too.
Nice instruments. Yes, they know how to use those instruments.
They're very skillful.
Very.
Geddy Lee is a very underrated bass player, and any guitar circle, Alex Lifeson is a god. You know,
He
a
is.
renowned musician.
He absolutely is. So where did they? So where did they start? Well, they started in Tirana, which is especially interesting. Toronto, Ontario, in 1968, formed initially by Alex Lifeson and drummer pal John Rutsey, although Geddy joined extremely quickly after that, within a few days, who, as well as the bass player, became the unlikely frontman. They settled on this power trio lineup. They played a lot of Cream, Hendrix, Zeppelin, Who covers, plus original material, gigged very hard.
I was going to say that first album, you know, a lot of bands that, you know, they often don't come out with a heavy hitter for their first album, but some of the stuff that's on that first album is really, really good.
Yeah, first album particularly is straight ahead hard rock, little Zeppelin-esque touches, and so it was a lot of the second album too. It was a lot of that material. Well, gigging hard in Ontario, released the debut album Rush in Canada in March 1974. It did get them enough exposure to land a record deal with Mercury Records. Again, you could spend all day just talking about that history, but just this is, and most people know this stuff, but just a little bit of a background. So the album, as you say, that was pretty heavy. It was like largely hard rock, Zeppelin-esque stuff. Some great tracks on that first album, which they played. Working Man. They played a lot of 2 or 3 of those tracks all the way through their career. So, and then they got a lot of US tours supporting larger acts. John Rutsey departed and is sadly no longer with us. And a certain Neil Peart.
And the funny thing, I'm sure he was kicking himself. He left because of the touring schedule. He found they were too much on the road, and he wanted to stay more closer to home.
He did it. He also had the sort of long-standing diabetes issues, and needed to close to hospitals, and I don't think he wanted to do the more progressive stuff either. So, excuse me. So lots of US tours supporting larger acts. I mean, you look at the list of the gigs they did, all the bands that they worked with. There's some incredible bands. Then the second album, Fly By Night, released February 75. They started to incorporate longer songs, but also immediately saw the impact of Neil Peart's lyrics and his love of his love of science fiction and fantasy. I mean, Fly By Night contains the track Anthem, which is his first Ayn Rand mention. Well, first one, maybe others, but that one's a very important one because Anthem is the basis of 2112. So that album did quite well. I mean, you still hear Fly By Night on rock radio up here all the time. But getting a twofer in one of the world's greatest drummers to become, and an incredible lyricist, the Professor, was quite the thing. So was the back of the first album.
A little less, very little known fact, or some might do. Neil Peart was an avid reader. He would read anything from National Geography to Time Magazine to Life Magazine to philosophy books and everything. He was in tune. He was the internet before the internet was there. So he read on every subject and any subject. It was awesome. That's why he had such a rich
incredible.
He had a rich well to dig lyrics from, or themes, or concepts, or anything.
Exactly. So, Hail Void King, good to see you. Hail Courtney, good to see you too. Courtney. So the second album did quite well, Fly By Night, and I do always love the cover. It's a great cover. Great artwork. But then they wanted to go get away from the Zeppelin-esque hard rock template and move into more progressive stuff. So next album, Caress of Steel, September 1975, longer form songs, some longer songs, bit more prog influence, still a lot of hard rock in there, but it really didn't do that well.
And not a big favorite with fans, except for yours truly, who's a contrarian. I actually love this album. Caress of Steel is a great album. I love it.
It is, and it was them trying to do something but different from just hitting the hard rock stuff. I mean, Rush were always a very hard rocking band, as we saw from the montage, but they wanted to move away to do other things, but it did not go down well.
No.
And the subsequent tour, which the roadies dubbed the Down the Tubes tour because it was so poorly received, things look pretty bleak.
And that's a beauty because it's a comeback story. Because of this, the band thought it was done, and then they come back with 2112 and just blow everybody away.
Well, you know what I think is interesting is I remember I think my dad was showing it to me. This documentary about like rock, like young teenagers like trying to get into the rock and roll scene, and like how it's this like, you know, parents need to be careful with, you know, because it's a risky business. I think one of the kids on it was Alec Lifeson. And he's talking about he's talking about getting into a band. And like, what are you going to do? You're probably never going to make it. It's like, well, me and my friends, we figure we can make $80 a gig, right? And it like turns out he's going to be in Rush. So it's like, you know, imagine what his parents were thinking now. You know what I mean? After that.
Yeah. So Mercury Records, not impressed with the lack of success of Caress of Steel and the loss of money, and the band were broke at this point, said, we're going to give you one more chance, but we want an album that's more like Fly By Night with some commercial stuff in it. And the band went, yeah, we can do that. Mm-hmm. And that's where the story really began. They said, yes, of course we can do that, Mercury.
And blew everybody out of the water with 2112.
Indeed. So, which is where we come in today. So let me just... Before we move on to 2112 specifically, I wouldn't mind just running through who we're talking about here. I mean, I know everyone is very well versed on Rush, but let's just, for those who may not be old people like me, we're talking three guys at this point. So Geddy Lee, born Gary Lee Weinrib, in July 1953, vocals. Extremely high vocals and vocals, bass, keyboards, music, and occasional lyrics. Cinderella Man, he wrote the lyrics to Cinderella Man. Geddy is a avid collector of stuff. Baseball firma, vintage bass guitars. Apparently he had to get a whole new place built at the side of his house to house everything he's got. Wines, he's into wine. He's got thousands of vintage wines. And he's an avid watch collector, which I find interesting. Time being a big factor in many Rush songs, the concept of time. Phenomenal bass player, and I mean, you can hear the riffs. It's very John Entwistle all the time. The riffs are what are making the tune, where the guitar is doing something different. The bass riffs. So generally speaking, Rickenbacker 4001 was one of his primary basses. This one, I love Rickenbacker basses, so I've always loved Rush because of that. It's got a very punchy and bright sound, and you can hear it all over things like 2112, that Rickenbacker bass sound. But he also did have some interesting Rickenbacker double-necked stuff as well.
Yes.
Which is just phenomenal. I love seeing a band, two guys in a band playing double-necked stuff. Brilliant. There's the Rickenbacker.
The Rickenbacker bass.
4001. Yeah. You know, that's my favorite McCartney era in the 70s. He played Rickenbackers in the 70s, not the violin bass. And
also, another legend was a huge fan of the Rickenbacker bass, and that was Lemmy Kilmister.
Oh, yeah. Punchy. You can play lead type stuff, very punchy sound. And he also was a big, at this point, 2112, starting to get into things like the Mini Moog and the
That's so
The
cool.
pedals, the Taurus pedals, the bass pedals, and then the so this is a Taurus one. It may not be the exact one, but that's you see him on stage with the pedals. Used to think, how are they doing? How are they going? They're making those keyboard sounds. So he's playing with his feet and his hands and singing. What a guy!
I know, multi-talented.
Indeed, multi-talented. I mean, there's again, you could do entire shows, and people have on just the equipment they used on every period and album. So.
Yeah.
But 2112 started to experiment with that stuff. Now there's Alex Lifeson, born I can't even pronounce this. Born Alexander Zavino. I'm sorry,
He was
Zavinojovic in 1953. Guitars, keyboards, music writer. Geddy wrote a lot of music too. They weren't so hot in the lyrics too. They're very happy to have Neil on board. Not a lot of backing vocals as well.
Yeah.
Not a lot of backing vocals.
A little bit of a nugget here, Brian. His, I think he was Lithuanian or something. He's from Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
Okay. His name translates in English into life son. So that's where he got his name.
That's where he took license. Okay.
Yes.
And Tim, who's also, I should point out, Tim is a high sticker, and he's also donated $1.31 Canadian. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that very much. We have to play a clip for you then.
Serb immigrants. Thanks, Davina.
Serbian, yes. Zavino. That's it. Yeah, I'm terrible. I'm Scottish. Forgive me. I can't even speak English.
It translates into son of life or life son in English.
Indeed. And his principal instrument at that time and for many years, and he's a big Gibson guy. He says there's nothing quite like having a Gibson Les Paul low slung over here. And he's right. But this is the Gibson ES335 semi-hollow electric that he used a lot. Ooh, Big Dave K coming in hot. Hey, here we go. So thank you, Dave, for $5. Big Dave K, Gary Lee wound up nicknamed Geddy because his Yiddish mom pronounced Gary differently. Yes, that's right. She'd say Giddy.
And Geddy Lee bought his first guitar working at his parents' store, who were Jewish immigrants from Europe also. So they had that bond with Alex Lifeson.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Dave. Very, very, very much appreciate that. So you're going to have to get a clip. We'll give you an old standard.
That is my favorite and never gets old.
It never gets old. Never gets old. So Alex, the ES35, he also played the Gibson Dove quite a bit, so Closer to the Heart, that intro. That's played on a Gibson Dove acoustic. Beautiful. Very nice. I like to see a lot of people are into the Strats and the Fenders. I like to see the Gibsons. And there's the double-necked that he used, which is the EDS 1275 Gibson double neck. That's a beauty. I mean, you can't beat Rick Nielsen of Cheap Trick having 6 necks or whatever in his guitar.
Sorry, I'm reading the chat. Lord Thought's killing it. You know, he's doing his James Brown impersonation.
Yeah. I mean, as I say, a ton of other gear, and he was using pedals too at this time. He started to use pedals, so that was becoming a feature of their stage show. How can 3 guys make so much noise? I used to think, and it wasn't because they were playing with their feet and their hands. And I've seen them twice live, and it was phenomenal both times. Absolutely phenomenal experience. I wish I could go back and do it more. And then we have the third part of the trio at this time, Neil Peart. Born Neil Elwood Peart, which I've always found nice to find somebody actually called Elwood that isn't in the Blues Brothers.
That's right.
And in fact, that means we have to probably play a clip. Well, here we go.
What kind of music do you usually have here?
Oh, we got both kinds. We got country and western.
So, Neil Elwood. Tim, I see your message. I will read the email later. Yes, thanks, mate. And I've got to get something from you as well. I need to ask you for something. Nicknamed the Professor, tragically passed away after a long battle with cancer in January 2020. A tremendous loss to the music world and just to the world in general, in fact.
Yes. And a tragic life, too. He lost his daughter
Oh, yeah,
and
I know his wife. Yeah, he had
oh, my God.
He had some struggles, but magnificent musician and writer. And he's a writer, not just a drummer. He's a writer, lyricist, wrote a lot of books. His books were all like universal themes of life, but also science fiction, fantasy, philosophy. I mean, it's not cod philosophy. He's actually writing philosophy.
Yeah.
Secular, humanitarian, and most importantly, libertarian themes. He was a very, very strong libertarian. And he was a keen biker and traveler, an all-round new age man, so to speak. Here's the Slingerland drum kit that he used in this period, which is a beauty. Not as big as he ended up with, but an absolutely beautiful drum kit. I mean, even the color of that is beautiful.
Beautiful.
Then later on, he ended up with the 2112 Starman one as well. Some of his drum kits were just gorgeous over the years, absolutely gorgeous, and eventually built up into this enormous. I love the above shots of him playing. This surrounded with this enormous stuff. He's got triggers for electronic samples, all sorts of stuff. Just incredible, technically proficient, superbly technically proficient drummer. So that's the guys we're talking about at this time. And they sat down after the failure of Caress of Steel and said, well, the record company wants something commercial, but we're not going to go that way. We're going to do what it might be our last chance. We're going to do what we want to do.
That's right.
And hope that gets through this time. So, oops, forgive me. I know not what I do. Where's my producer?
Mm-hmm. Lord thoughts, drummers are not just musicians. They're the platform that the band sits on.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for drummers, it wouldn't be a band.
So what do you, we all know what you call a drummer without a girlfriend.
Homeless.
Yes. What's the last thing a drummer says in a band?
Hey, let's play one of my tunes.
Let's play one of my tunes. Yeah. Apart from if it's Neil.
Yeah, but don't forget, Lord Thought, drummers used to lead armies into battles while fucking guitarists used to beg for coins on street corners.
I mean, it's a pipe. They have a pipes and drums for a reason. So let's talk 2112. So we're getting, after the disappointing reception for Caress of Steel, they decided to go for broke. Progressive broke, because they were broke. I think Alex said he had to borrow a Strat for some songs because he didn't have more than 2 guitars. He didn't have enough guitars. Recorded in January 1976 at Toronto Sound with their pal Terry Brown on co-production with them. They heavily inspired, released in March 76 on Mercury Records, heavily inspired by Ayn Rand's anthem novella, the first side anyway, of the album, which had previously inspired the song Anthem itself. And they had long form on one side and then songs on the other. So they did give the record company something. But that first side with the overture, with the whole story of the dystopian future, individuality has been erased. There's therefore no expression of individuality, no music, none of these other things. And then just for good measure, as well as having the battle between the person who found the guitar and decided to try and challenge the priests, you've then got that crazy ending with we have assumed control. So he's threw in a little bit of that too. A little bit of science fiction too. And 2112, a little bit of a riff on 1812 Overture. And they even have a little bit of a riff in there from 1812. Then the Starman logo, which became extremely well known. And of course, they're such good looking guys. But 2112 reached number 5 in Canada, number 61 in the US, selling over 3 million copies in the US alone. And by 1981, it achieved platinum status. So it worked. Whatever they did, the public responded this time to it, whereas they hadn't on Caress of Steel. And it captured, it captured the raw energy, because there's a lot of heavy rock on there, as well as the progressive shift that they'd gone to. And you've got such, you've got such standout songs, not just the whole suite on side 1, but on side 2, you've got A Passage to Bangkok, which became a staple for years for them, and a song about marijuana. Strangely enough, Twilight Zone, inspired by the show. Lessons, a little bit more contemplative. Tears is a beautiful track, and they showed a sensitive side on some of these too. And then Something for Nothing, another libertarian statement by Neil Peart. So I've got the deluxe anniversary version, which has got all sorts of other stuff in it. It's really, really good. But just the audacity of that long form science fiction fantasy based first side, and yet it worked. People loved it. So it's more, to me, it's more than just a progressive rock album. I think they made a statement here of artistic integrity and creative courage under the threat of losing their record label. They may never have recovered from that with the debt that they had from the previous tour, etc. They were pressured to compromise, but instead they delivered a magnum opus. But this time it was a commercial success. Oh, there you are. Am I here on my own? I don't know. So I just, I remember hearing it. I didn't have the vinyl copy. I couldn't afford to buy too many records that day. I was only like 14, but a friend had it, so I recorded it on cassette. But I remember listening to it thinking, this is grown-up music.
Yes.
This is music for adults, whereas before I'd been listening to, to be fair, I'd been listening to a lot of rock and metal. This seemed like another world. Literally seemed like if it was from a different planet. And speaking of being from a different planet, it's Pope.
Hey!
How's it going, guys? Sorry I'm late. I was unreasonably detained.
Oh, well, I don't know if there's such a thing with you. Was it?
Well, that's fair.
What were you charged with?
Well, in my case, it was just a chainsaw motor that didn't want to start.
All right. So look at that gatefold sleeve. Isn't that beautiful?
Yes, and the artwork inside.
Yeah.
And there's the anniversary deluxe edition, which is the one I've got.
There we go.
I just love that.
Pull that out of the record sleeve.
You're thrust through the barriers of time into Rush's chilling vision of the year 2112. Rush actually managed to recreate the sound of a war on that, on that first side. But also the beauty of the guy finding the guitar and he's playing it out of tune. Just allowing that to breathe.
And the only other artist that I know that did that was Jimi Hendrix in his rendition of Star Spangled Banner. When he does it live at Woodstock, he actually mimics the cannons and the artillery into the solo. But that was the only other, those are the only two that I know that can replicate war like that on instruments.
Yeah. There's some stuff from like Anthrax and Sodom that come pretty close too, but Rush is certainly one of the best.
I bootlegged it, Tim. All right. I recorded everything on cassette in those days. I didn't have the money to buy records. So I'm playing this on a monophonic portable cassette player. It still sounded amazing.
I got you beat. I used to record off the radio on a cassette, a blank
I
cassette.
did that too.
Yeah, that's how poor I was.
But just, I mean, we're going to play some tracks over in Rumble when we're done on the YouTube side.
I was very fortunate to grow up in the era of CDRs, so I could literally just burn it off of Napster and onto a CD.
But I don't know if there's been that many bands have made such an audacious statement with their backs to the wall.
No, exactly. The balls on these guys.
That's what I love about this record is they were one album away from gone. And instead of, doing whatever they had to please the record execs, they were just like, screw it. If we're going to go out at doing Rush and being who we are. And they knocked it out of the park, and it became an immortal classic.
Yeah, and in fact, not just doing Rush, but doing new Rush, like the Rush they wanted to be all along.
And that's the thing. This one was out there even for them at this time.
But not only that, how many good bands started off good with 1, 2, or 3 records and sold out and went commercial, and then that was the end of their greatness. Yeah. Thank God for
Def Leppard. Def Leppard.
Def Leppard.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why Rush is so great. That's why they're so iconic. That's why they lasted over 40 years.
Yeah. I don't think they ever compromised, which is an incredible thing to do.
There's a difference between selling out and then just doing a hard reset. Like sellouts, like joking, Def Leppard and Motley Crue come to mind, right? Where they got a couple really good albums to start off with, and then it just kind of, okay, what's commercial? But then there's kind of like bands like the Ramones that kind of do a reset every now and then of what they're trying to do, and it can work sometimes, right? And like Alice Cooper comes to mind with this, right? So it's not always a bad thing to take a completely different turn from where you started.
No, of course not. No, I mean, I think bands should be doing that.
I think a lot of it has to do with whether it's good or bad depends on the fan reaction to it and their reaction to that. Perfect example being Metallica with the Black Album. On itself, not too bad. I actually don't mind the record. But based on how the fans responded to it, that should not have then been what you did for the next 25 years. That should have been like, okay, well, that was a fun diversion, but nobody wanted that, so back to what we were doing.
Yeah. The thing I've always liked about this album, though, is that whilst it's progressive, it's progressive in a particularly rock and metal way. There's some really thumping rock segments on this album.
Passage to Bangkok, anybody?
Yeah, but in the 2112 sequence in side 1, there's some real aggressive rock mixed in amongst the
lyrics is fucking awesome with that.
Yeah, they didn't have to make it pastoral. Now they can do pastoral, like a couple of the tracks on the second side have those elements, but they actually kicked some ass while they were being progressive, which was good. It was progressive metal. I mean, they may well have, I don't know if they invented it, but they certainly solidified it.
On the leading edge of it. They're right there with Rainbow.
Yeah. This is progressive metal, absolutely. And then with the brilliant story and lyrics.
And you can't listen to 30 seconds of the overture and tell me this isn't metal.
Oh, well, when you see them playing it live, they're really thundering. But the actual lyrical content, I mean, the lyrics tell the story, but the music itself told the story too. Because it wasn't all explained in the lyrics. The music represented a lot of the things that were being done.
Well, yeah, like Discovery, where they don't even really have to explain to you what he's doing. He's just very quickly picking up on how a guitar works and what you can do with it.
Yeah.
Hey, then adding in all the things of, look at what I can do with this. This is great.
You see, I can sympathize because I'm still at that bit where he's tuning up.
Yeah.
After 50 years. But yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful statement by Neil Peart of freedom, artistic freedom, individuality, courageous stand against authoritarianism, all those things that were built into it from the Ayn Rand side, but brilliantly done and just kicks ass as well.
Yeah, like even if you're just more of a metalhead, this album has that heavy sound that metal is famous for. But if you were into it for more, whether it be the libertarian kind of messaging or, the storytelling that's on display here, it's all there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, they did make some concession to the record company by saying, well, let's do some songs inside too that are not part of it. And you've not only that, some of their greatest songs, like Passage to Bangkok.
Oh, Passage to Bangkok's in perpetual rotation on my playlist whenever I reach for these guys.
A song, a homage to finding marijuana wherever you go.
Yep.
I believe. But yeah, Twilight Zone is fantastic, and they stretched out on some of these songs too, because then they started to introduce different guitar sounds, keyboard stuff. I mean,
Tears. And I feel like, especially following up 2112, the piece, I feel like the Twilight Zone's an interesting one because the song itself is, or 2112 is kind of like a Twilight Zone episode of, this is the far future and everything's gone horribly.
Yeah, indeed. And they were kind of right. Ayn Rand was ahead of her time in that respect, and so were Rush.
They are very, very similarly correct in the worst way possible.
Yeah, indeed. But I mean, as Neil always said, it was about individuality and artistic freedom, not necessarily political messaging, but it's certainly
Well, but at the same time, back in the 70s when they wrote this, that wasn't a political statement like it is now. Where it was just about artistic freedom and the ability to express yourself in whatever way you want it.
Sorry, Sumo. Hit the wrong button. Yeah, and they did suffer a lot of blowback over the years from certain quarters about the fact that they had these libertarian views. So it wasn't something
you can't tell. I mean, I can't wait to play songs like "The Trees" and watch your local communist head explode.
That's right.
But that's the thing. The Trees, is it they still don't know what it is. Is it about politicians? Is it about political alignment?
It's about collectivism and
it's straight up the collectivist mentality.
But also the fact that both groups don't realize
the class struggle. It's an anti-Marxist song directly.
Right.
But in a way, the two classes are struggling, and then along comes the real master and cuts them all down.
Which that's where the libertarian aspect comes in, because it's the state.
So we'll get into
they're
that.
all kept equal with hatchet, axe, and saw. I cannot think of a better allegory for communism this side of Orwell.
Well, the problem though is back then it wasn't uncommon for like these more libertarian ideals to be in your songwriting, right? I mean, listen to a lot of Black Sabbath, right?
Well, especially in a lot of the rock and metal spaces, that's been our ethos since minute one.
So.
But I'd like to know when is the complete point when everyone got cucked? Like that's my question. Yeah, I mean, true. I would say 90s, but it's a shame.
A lot of the bands you think of as 90s bands started off in the mid 80s, like Green Day, all that kind of stuff.
So while you're having a discussion, I'm just going to show the poll choices again for those that are vote in the poll. So keep talking.
No, I was going to say, like, if you listen to, because a lot of some of the people you even meet at like metal shows are the biggest collectivist shills you will ever see. And it's just, I'd like to know where has it gone, because half the songs they sing at these concerts are like anti.
Keep in mind too, you're in a very left-wing area of the country.
That's also true.
Elsewhere, it's not like that, and a lot of the metalheads I know are like politically they may be more left-leaning on certain topics, but most of them are very individualistic and very much in the. And
that's where Rush and Neil particularly were coming from, an individual libertarian perspective, whether it be artistically or so. It wasn't necessarily about support of a political party or.
Yeah, it was. Don't tell me what I can and can't say, or how I can.
Artistic freedom. Yeah. So, given that we have time constraints, me particularly, we'll move on to, and so vote in the poll, everybody. You've seen the choices. We'll move on. So 2112 was a big success for them and continued to grow over the years in reputation. Yeah. So they went out on a great world tour between February 76, June 77, played 140 gigs over the US, Canada, Europe, lots of theaters and smaller venues and arenas. Significantly played Massey Hall in their home city of Toronto for 3 nights, which they recorded for the All the World's a Stage album. And that, funnily enough, the opening act on these gigs was a band called Max Webster, really good band. Kim Mitchell,
Mitchell.
great guitar player. I've met him and I've seen him in concert. Brilliant guy, brilliant guitar player, Kim Mitchell.
Canadian icon.
So they capitalized on 2112's success, but that meant their stage show had become good enough to match that. So they started to use the pedals on stage for the Taurus pedals and incorporating more instrumentation and specific stage effects to enhance that music. And they
And this
kicked
was in that
ass.
70s arms race when it came to prog rock bands and how elaborate their stage productions could be, too.
Yeah. So this became, as a result, their first top 40 US album, the live album from this. Certified gold, and then went on to be platinum. Not long after Moving Pictures was a huge success, this became a platinum album because their albums continued to sell well over the years.
Yep.
And the set list from this was comprised of a lot of tracks from the first three albums, and some 2112, including they played like usually an abbreviated version of the side one. They cut couple little bits out. They did occasionally play the whole thing, but for time purposes, they chopped little bits out. But it's still a pretty damn good record of how well they played live. And tracks on this album, I actually think their version of Anthem on here is better than the studio version.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, some of their stuff in here, because they were such a good live band. So, What You're Doing, that's the other track from the first album. I absolutely adore that track. Brilliant. Finding My Way, another great track. They played that right up until their final gigs. They were playing Finding My Way. I think it was the R40 tour. They dropped the backdrop and it was like they were playing in a high school again, and they played the 2 or 3 tracks from the first album like they would have in a high school in the early 70s. So a great record of that. They played most of the side one of the album, and it went down well, though. That was the thing. Unlike Caress of Steel tour, this went down really well. So they were emboldened to go on and, they had commercial success. They'd proven to the record company they could do it. What are they going to do next? They're going to go on and make another kick-ass album. And this is like 76, 77. What a fertile period.
And these are 2 of the albums that compete, in my estimation, for their absolute best.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So the next one was another absolute banger of an album, Farewell to Kings. Another definitive artistic statement.
And there's so much great stuff on it, too. I mean, the one that everyone knows off this record would be Closer to the Heart, but that's like average for this record.
Yeah, well, it's like every track is a banger, and it's got 2 of the longer form pieces, which were popular throughout their entire career. But there's an interesting thing though, given that they were so into science fiction and fantasy, they actually recorded it in a fantasy country called Wales.
Wow.
Which doesn't exist. I mean, as we all know, Wales is a fantasy country. It's not real.
It was made up by Tolkien.
Yeah, so they went to Rockfield Studios in Wales to record. The first time they'd recorded outside of Canada. Now, I have to say, there's a great documentary called The Studio on the Farm about Rockfield Studios in Wales. Watch it if you can, because you had lots of bands like Sabbath and whatever recording there. Tons of famous bands recorded this little... Basically, it was a farm out in the middle of the country in Wales, and they turned it into a recording studio. And it made some classic stuff there, and Rush went there because you could get away from it all. Just the smell of the cow shit.
Yep.
And a pub at the end of the road. So
can't go wrong with that. Peace and quiet.
Yeah, so recorded in June and July 1977, released August 1977. So really not far off the back of that world tour.
And that's a really fast turnaround for a record, too. I mean, after they were done recording it, it was less than a month of post-production before it was out.
Yep, exactly. So they really were pretty, given the scope of the music, they were pretty efficient at getting this stuff down, which is a testament to their musical abilities and vision, I think.
That and their work ethic, because, I mean... Like you can't record a track like Xanadu all in one take.
No. Well, actually, when you watch the documentary, and there's lots of Rush documentaries, but I remember one particular where they were talking about think it might have been the 40th tour, maybe it was R30 tour, where they're showing, okay, we've got to play some old stuff. They practically had to relearn it because it's so complicated, they've forgotten how to play half of it. They're like, okay, shit, how did I do this?
Right.
So, yeah, so this reached number 11 in the Canadian charts, number 33 in the US, and it proved to be their first UK hit album, reaching number 22 in the UK. So they actually, although they'd been known in the UK and played some gigs, they hadn't really sold a lot of records, but this one actually finally broke them through there. And they continued to explore the ideas that they explored in 2112. So disillusion with authority, the pursuit of truth, the evolution of man, and logic, the balance of logic and emotion. So all the themes that Neil loved to write about and read about and write about and explore. And the title, which is it's a very interesting title, Farewell to Kings. It's a sort of departure from the old and bringing in new ideas. So, and the track Farewell to Kings, it's got that beautiful, majestic. Dun, 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 dun. I just love that. Absolutely majestic. But every track on here is an absolute banger.
Oh yeah. And starting off side 2 with Closer to the Heart, I mean, you're just guaranteed to get people to tune in for that.
Yeah.
Because that was their radio hit off of this record. And then they followed up with Cinderella Man, which I think has some of the best licks on this whole record.
Okay, I don't know what happened there. We lost. Somebody assumed control. I hope the stream's still going. I think we may have lost. No, we're here. Okay, that was bizarre. We all got thrown out. We all got chucked out there. That was bizarre.
But no, I think Cinderella Man has some of the best riffs on this whole record.
Cinderella Man is always been one of my favorites, and I think actually that was one of the exceptions. I think Geddy wrote the lyrics on that one.
Yeah.
One of the exceptions lyrically that it wasn't necessarily written by Neil. So, and to show he could actually do it. I mean, Geddy could write them if he wanted.
Yeah, and and when it comes to the guitar work on there, I mean, that's one of the songs I point to when I say Alex Lifeson is one of the most underrated guitarists of that era.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the range and style of guitar playing on this. I mean, you've got Who style riffs. You've got beautiful acoustic, semi-acoustic stuff. You got hard rock, Zeppelin-esque hard rock.
Fly too.
Yeah.
Like he can be doing a perfect acoustic bit and then go into some really hard riffs just without even skipping a beat, and it's just all perfect.
And I think shows you the strength of the musicianship of a good 3-piece band, that they can't all just play the same thing for 2 hours. They have to have the variety in there. They could make intricate stuff that they could reproduce live with different guitar sounds, using the bass a lot as a lead instrument, the drumming filling in all those areas that are otherwise empty in a 3-piece lineup. So phenomenal. But I mean, every track, I mean, we'll talk about them when we play some of them over in Rumble, but every track is just.
I think Motorhead would be the easy one to shoot for, and while technically they're not, really they're not a 3-piece, but technically you could say they are, is Black Sabbath, because you really only have 3 musicians playing and 1 singer, right? Black Sabbath kind of does the same thing, the way Iommi and Geezer and Burt Ward fill out their own.
Bill Ward.
Burt Ward was Robin, wasn't he?
Yeah, I knew I got it wrong when I said it, but
Robin was playing. I'm just kidding.
But go back to what you're saying. Like, it is interesting to watch bands that only have 3 actual musicians on stage and how they have to navigate, like, filling up for each other. I think it's actually it makes a band way more creative, I think.
It does. I'm just making sure. Yeah, we're live on Rumble. Just for an horrible moment, I can see people, Dude Bro and Vince talking over there, and I thought, I can't see the stream over there. Is it working? Because we are going to go to Rumble at some point and play a couple of tracks. I have got some time limits today, but I'm going to post in the YouTube side the Rumble link for those who want to go over to Rumble when we finish here, and we'll play some tunes, because you can't talk about music without playing some music.
But, so for you Rush diehards, Is everything by Rush good, or do they have some albums to avoid?
They do, but they're all way later.
Yeah, I'm not so keen on the electronic, the synth heavy stuff as much.
And again, it depends what you want. If you want just standard rock and roll, the first album is just for you. If you want something deep and something what do you call those? A conceptual album, then 2112, Farewell to King, Moving Pictures, those are for you. It all depends on your taste. You know,
Moving Pictures is their commercial peak, I think. I mean, there was a lot of without compromising, there are a lot of commercial tracks on that.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, you have Limelight, YYZ, Red Barchetta, all of that sold incredibly well. It was massive. Tom Sawyer was all massively on the radio.
Tom Sawyer's on Moving Pictures. Yeah.
So
I get confused.
What would be a good stopping point then? If I was going to listening to the first album, what would be a good stopping point?
Well, you couldn't do worse than start with a Farewell to Kings.
Oh no! Well, because I always like to start off with the first album because I like to hear the evolution of the band.
Everything up from here up to Moving Pictures is absolutely stellar. I mean, I personally am a huge fan of Hemispheres and Permanent Waves. So
yeah, but
I would stop at Hemispheres or Permanent Waves is about where the real Rush stops.
Okay, but Sumo, I'll tell you something. Do yourself a favor, listen to all the albums, because then you got our mutual friend, Republic Sentinel, who loves anything after Moving Pictures, right up to the end. He just loves that's solid for him. So it all depends on your personal taste. Some people are like, yeah, earlier is better. I like later better. Listen to everything, make up your own mind. Because you can ask 10 different Rush fans, they'll have 10 different ideas or answers about where's a good band, where's a good album, where to start, where to stop. You know what I mean? So do yourself a favor, enjoy the whole experience, take your time, listen to the whole experience, and then take it from there. Because I don't want you to go and miss out on something because of somebody else's personal opinion.
Yeah, you should. I mean, there's no one place to start, I think, but you couldn't do worse than start, if you wanted to dive in the middle, to start Farewell to Kings. But I mean, you may well then want to take a live album and get a breadth of material from that and then go off to the studio albums. So I just gifted some memberships on so there'll be a member stream soon. We'll be doing a member stream soon. So gifted a few there.
But Brian, I'm going to jump ship.
All right, mate.
Use the Marine analogy.
Who are you going to jump?
We have a Marine here. But sorry, was there a comment? No, did I cut?
I said, who are you going to jump?
The ship. At least I'm not jumping the shark. That's okay. So I draw the line at that. But thanks for having me, Brian, and I'm looking forward to see you exactly 8 days.
Yes, we're having a meeting of minds.
And you know what's cool coming on your show? It's like being on my show, but somebody else is talking more because you got all the same co-hosts that I have on my Final Revival show. Right. So it's cool.
It is indeed, my friend. It is. Thank you for being here. And I look forward to seeing you next week in person.
Yes, and no shrimp, no oyster, and certainly not prairie oysters.
Those prairie oysters, you're getting prairie oysters whether you like it or not.
Okay.
All right, mate. Guys. Take care. Good to see you.
Later.
I just, before we start wrapping up a bit and go over to Rumble to play some tunes, Rush were never critical favorites, but here's a review of A Farewell to Kings by Village Voice, which is an obnoxious New York publication. Critic Robert Christgau gave the record a D, panning Rush as, to quote, the most obnoxious band currently making a killing on the zonked teen circuit. He further compared them to bands such as Angel, Kansas, and Uriah Heep, who Rush toured with vocals revved up an octave or two. So they were never critical favorites.
But how you can... Uriah Heep is totally different than Rush.
Yeah, they're very
different.
That's
because these guys wouldn't know talent or couldn't find talent if they had both hands, a map, and a flashlight.
Yeah, but how could you even hate Uriah Heep? Uriah Heep is like Jethro Tull on steroids.
Yeah, they're more on the Judas Priest side of the house where they're more metal.
I was going to say, I love Uriah Heep.
But I don't see much of a connection between Uriah Heep and Rush. Maybe early on, but by this point, they are very different bands.
Anyone that's just become a
love
member,
about Rush is like, you know, you got guys like me who are just like, yeah, I enjoy them. They're not like my favorite, but I like them. And then you got diehards who it's like, there's no other band in existence but Rush to Rush fans.
And yet I can totally justify that, you know, fanatic mentality. They are that good.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
I agree. They inspire devotion. People their entire lives are devoted to bands like Rush, and Rush in particular are one of those bands that people do that with, and I get it because they are a phenomenal band with a lot of very. This is not ephemeral music. This is music that lasts and means something.
And I think that's what made Rush what they are. Is it's not a, you know, you listen to it once, you put the record down, and maybe you come back to it at some point. You can listen to these albums over and over again for decades and still find something new.
Oh, all the time. I mean, I'm doing that. I'm still discovering stuff on these albums all the time.
You're even just listening to songs like Xanadu, you're like, wait, I know what they're doing now. Like, that's really cool.
Xanadu, Cygnus X1, and then X2 later on Hemispheres.
And being like a big, like, always loving the harder, like heavier stuff. Like even before I got into metal, I always liked things that were heavier. That's why I was always a big fan of the Who and stuff like that. So like songs like Working Man and like even like Spirit of the Radio always stuck out to me as grown up.
Oh God, yeah. I remember when Spirit of Radio was a #3 hit single in the UK. And this is like wild because there was nothing like it had ever been a hit single in the UK. It was like, it's up there with all this pop stuff and the #3 Rush Spirit Radio, and it's on the pop radio the whole time. And like, this is incredible for such a song.
And that's when like the normies get involved in, you know, albums like that. Is just like, oh, have you heard of these Rush guys? And all the rockers are just like, yeah, we've heard them for a decade. Where the hell have you been?
Yeah. So just what I'm going to close the poll, but for those who haven't voted and still want your chance to have your say in our fashion poll, we're going to do a fashion poll every time we do a music show, like the Dave Lee Roth and now the Rush. So your choices are glam, the glam look, glam slam, or satin and lace. Look at those manly men. Nobody could ever call Canadian guys gay.
That mustache.
And then a flock of geese. Or your standard Trailer Park Boys look, which they could do too. So another few seconds, we're going to close that poll. I've had 17 votes. That's pretty good. Anyone, this is your last chance. Last chance to vote. We got another vote. Oh, it's going to be even more decisive. We are ending that poll now. There we go. So I'm a little bit surprised. I would have gone for satin and lace myself. But that's not what's happened.
I love the Trailer Park Boy look.
We've had the Trailer Park Boy look. I don't know if that comes up. I can't get it to come up. I'll have to type it in myself. There we go. Paste. So we had at #1, the Trailer Park Boys look got 50% of the votes. Glam Slam got 27%. Well, nice one for John Rutsey there, who was in those pictures. Satin and Lace got 16%, and a Flock of Geese only 5%. So there you go. The public have spoken. They just want the jeans and t-shirt look with the Trailer Park Boys look. Dustin, my dear friend, good to see you, mate. $5. Thank you for that. Hail 70s. I'm trying to use this time to get as much work finished as I can today, just dropping in to show some love. Well, we appreciate your love, mate, and it's good to see you. Hopefully you'll be back on here soon. That means I got to play a little bit of a clip for you. What have we got? Oh, this one's a good one. A little bit different for you there. So once again, I'm going to grab the link to the Rumble side because we're going to go over there and play some tunes and wrap up on the YouTube side. Thank you, everybody that doesn't follow us. Please follow us over, because we're going to continue talking about these songs over there while we play a few till about 5 p.m. because I get a hard stop around about then. I don't know if, I mean, we've not really done Rush justice today. There's going to have to be more Rush, I think, in the future.
I think that's necessary, yeah.
I think so. I think this was just scratching the surface of Rush.
And don't tell Christian this, but I think doing this format where you only focus on a couple albums rather than the whole is a lot better than.
Yeah, I've given up focusing on an entire band. I think it's nice to narrow it down.
It depends on the artist. Like, we've done really successful streams both ways over on my show where, you know, we've done talking about guys' whole careers like George Thorogood and stuff like that. But a band like Rush, you do really have to drill down on one or two records and just focus on that.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much that they've done.
Well, because if I were ever to do like Judas Priest or Alice Cooper or even Iron Maiden, I would categorize like 2 or 3 albums and just focus on those, because there's so much different stuff to talk about in one album. You could talk about for an hour or 2 hours even on a lot of those guys.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I'd like to thank everybody for being here. As I say, we're not done yet. I've put the link to the Rumble side on in the chat on the YouTube chat side. Head over there and check out a few tunes. We'll play. It's difficult with you've got long form stuff. How much of it do you play? But I've only got 45 minutes left. I've also got a fun clip to play. That's a bit surprising. It's just a short one, so you'll see what I mean when I get there. It's been real. Thank you for being there on the YouTube side. If you leave us, enjoy the rest of your day. Please don't leave us though. Get over there. And we'll do some final farewells at the end of that show and talk about what we're doing, because Rumble's where it's at for you, Pope, for sure. So
Absolutely. I mean, that's the only place I put up content anymore.
Indeed. So it's farewell for YouTube, but we're still on live on Rumble. See you over there, everybody. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ending that stream on YouTube.